Okay, if you haven't already heard, a recent release from Johns Hopkins, the chief psychiatrist, has released that he now classifies transgender as a mental illness. Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupus, who has like over 500,000 followers on Twitter, has shared this. And her response was, if only there were more doctors who had a brain and courage to tell the truth. First, I want to spell it out that this is wrong. I disagree with it and this is wrong. And the headline of the article was that liberals are furious. I'm not a liberal. I don't consider myself a Republican or a Democrat, but I'm definitely not liberal. But the thing is that it's wrong. So before you go ahead and shut this video off, which a lot of you probably just did, I ask that you bear with me. Let me break this down for you so we can really dive into it. And so we can understand, and you probably will come to the realization that we don't disagree as much as you might think we do here at first. So as I commented on Twitter, and I had a discussion with a couple dozen different people over the last 2 days, it prompted me that I felt like I need to really put this out there and just be able to bring all the details into one place. One video, one post, all the details. Somebody asked me about my credentials and how is it that I have who am I to have the knowledge to do this? Well, on Twitter and all my different platforms, it's all oriented towards my business. That's what I use it for. Doesn't mean that that's all I know, doesn't mean that's all I do, but that's definitely what I utilize my social media for. I'm a businessman, I'm an investor, I do financial advice, I help people achieve better positions in their life to get to financial freedom and ultimately secure their livelihood in the future so they can get towards retirement and things like that, investing, stocks, crypto, all kinds of different things. And now you may not like any of those things, you may be into those things, doesn't really matter. But because of that, that's what I'm categorized on different social media platforms. So it doesn't really say a lot about my scientific background. The reality is I went to the University of Texas for a psychology degree. I spent 2.5 years actually working as a research assistant in a very prestigious psychology lab at the University of Texas, and worked directly with some great psychologists, great professors that have published many articles and many different things like that, many research data. I spent an entire year just understanding how to analyze data and how to come to conclusions based on experimental design and how you develop a psych experiment and psych studies opposed to just another scientific experiment because they're designed a little bit different. I also spent lots of time studying and analyzing how to get through statistics, how to weed out data, how to understand these different things. And I spent an entire year with 3 different professors that we took the DSM, which if you're not aware, that is basically the Bible for psychologists. It is every diagnosis that you can give to a patient. It is the book that tells you all of the diagnosis, and it's been updated for 4 times. It's on the 5th one now. It's the DSM-5. Okay, now we spent, like I said, an entire year with 3 different professors breaking down the flaws and seeing how flawed it is, the design of this book. Okay. So now let's get back to what we are talking about today, which is the fact that the chief psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins decided that we are classifying transgender as a mental disorder. It is not a mental disorder. Now, does that mean I agree with it and condone it? No, I absolutely don't. I don't agree with it. I don't condone it, especially in the way it is in our society today. There was a time years ago when it was like people did their own thing and it was, it was their business. Now it's kind of this thing where it's a social acceptance thing, and it's pushed on our society, and it's out there everywhere, and everybody's trying to get different people to see it, trying to get different people to accept it. They're having parades, marches, all different kinds of things, which again, I'm not trying to take away from their freedom to be themselves, but the idea is that the things that they're pushing upon society and pushing upon their children is not acceptable. Okay, now with that being said, like I said, I disagree. Now see, some people saw the fact that I disagreed with John Hopkins and they quickly jumped to the conclusion that I support transgender. That's not the idea at all. I disagree with John Hopkins' classification, that it is a mental illness. It is not a mental illness. First and foremost, a mental illness takes away your capacity to make rational decisions, to think for yourself, and to act within your own mind frame. Okay, now that being stated, the problem with saying that it's a mental illness is you've absolved them of any responsibility. You're saying basically, because you don't like what they do, they have a mental illness, and therefore it's not their fault that they did it. Which basically what you've done is you've set yourself up to condone the behavior. You have now put yourself in a position that it's okay. It's not their fault. You can't condemn someone. What kind of horrible human being would condemn someone with a mental illness? But that's what many people and conservatives are trying to do. Okay, and now not all conservatives and not all people and not all liberals, and that's why I typically frown upon these categories, because these categories lump everybody together, which they don't typically even fall. Most people don't fall into conservative or liberal. They don't. Now, if you're religious, then you're a conservative. If you're a non-believer, you're a liberal. If you believe in this, you're a liberal. If you believe in that, you're a conservative. If you're pro this or pro that, okay. There are so many people out there that believe one thing but don't believe another. Most people don't fall into one of those categories. So I only mention the idea of conservatives and conservatives and liberals because of the title of this article, which I think the title of the article is a problem in itself. But the article is not the main topic here. The main topic is John Hopkins and John Hopkins, how they're flawed in their classification. Because again, you've classified people with a mental illness that ultimately they're thinking for themselves. Now, what has happened in most cases? The reality is there's been many people who have talked about this before. I am not as prestigious maybe as some of these people, but the reality is that most people, this is something that's been talked about by psychologists for hundreds of years. Okay, and the reality is that most people at some point question their body. You question your body. There's nothing wrong with questioning your body. It's actually completely normal. Most people, it's such a passing thought. It's because they're young, they're questioning, they're inquisitive, they're curious, they're insecure. They feel weird once they realize that boys and girls are different. So lots of people have these issues, right? And I use that word too loosely there. I apologize, because it's not really an issue. It's normal. It's a passing thought. Lots of people have these thoughts. And most people never actually go to a counselor about it. But before, when somebody would go to a counselor, say they talk to their counselor, their therapist, their pastor, their, trusted uncle or somebody, they would tell them, hey man, it's weird that my body is different than my brothers or my sisters or my cousins or my friends. It's weird. They begin to question, why am I like this? And when people have that question, you know what they used to be told? It's okay. It's normal. It's fine. People are different. Mr. Rogers actually had a great song. Boys are different than girls. He sung a song about it. And girls are very special. And boys are very special. And they're all special in their own way, and they're all very different. A boy can never be a girl, and a girl can never be a boy. I don't remember exactly the whole song and all the lyrics, but it was a cute little song that Mr. Rudd, and why did he come up with this song? He didn't come up with this song for any type of political agenda, any platform. He came up with this song because it was a normal, common question that boys and girls have. Why am I different? Is something wrong with me? Why am I different? Why is something wrong with me? No child asks if there's something wrong with them. They ask if something's wrong with their self. And like I said, we've spent years and years and years and decades and stuff just reassuring kids that it's okay. It's okay to feel different. It's okay to be curious. It's okay to wonder. It's okay to ask. You're fine. These things are normal. But now the problem is what's going on is that when they have these questions, they're being told that, hey, maybe you're questioning that because something is wrong with you. And they're like, something is wrong with me? Oh my God. And before you know it, someone's gotten in their ear. They watched TikTok. They watched YouTube. They watched Instagram, Twitter. They got online somewhere, too many kids. Too many young people. And I say kids, but you know what? These are happening to young adults. The reality is that psychologically, you're in adolescence till about the age of 24. In some cases with slower developers to the age 26. People think adolescence is teen years. It's not. It lasts all the way up into your 20s. Your mental development. So we've got these young adults that we're like, oh, with adults, they can do whatever they want. And we got these kids who are literally underage that we're telling them, you feel like something's wrong with you. Something is wrong with you. Maybe you should fix it. Then they see these little articles. They see these little blurbs. They see these things on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, all over the place. They see these things. They see these things under the umbrella of free press, free speech, and everybody wants free speech. There are some things that don't need to be out there, but we fight for free speech. We do. I fight for it, you fight for it, we all fight for it. Everybody wants free speech. Everybody wants to be able to say whatever they want, but they don't like the things that other people say, but they want to be able to say whatever they want. So we fight for free speech. So people say these things, right? People post these things. Kids have access to these things. Young people have access to these things. Impressionable 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, they have access to all these things. And as they're having access to all these things, they're getting conditioned that, hey, you know what? Maybe something is wrong with you. Maybe you should fix it. Then on top of being conditioned to think it's something that's wrong with them, then they're being validated everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, all over the social media, everywhere. They're getting validated. You know what? I'm proud of you. You're a hero. You're a hero because you're doing what you're doing. And so then they feel like, you know what? I got to do it. So they make a hasty decision. Now, let's stop right there and analyze that for a second. Is making a hasty, impulsive decision based on conditioning, does that make you mentally ill? Because if that makes you mentally ill, nearly every one of us is. I would actually gamble. I'd roll the dice. I'd bet that every one of us, every single viewer I have and every single person I know would fall into that category. We've all been in a circumstance, a situation where we were impressionable, we were vulnerable, we were insecure, something. We were pressured to do something that ultimately, in different circumstances, we never even would have thought about. Never would have considered it. It would have been crazy to us. But we did it. Why? Because we were in a moment. We were in a moment of vulnerability. We were in a moment of insecurity. We were in a moment of weakness. That is a lot of these people. A lot of these people are in a moment. The small fraction, the small percentage of people who have actually thought about this for years and years and years and finally decided to take action, that's so astronomically small. It's less than 1%. But there's so many people actually taking action today. Why? They're actually taking hormones. They're doing surgeries. They're changing their clothes. They're changing their appearance. They're doing all these things because they had a question. That's a normal question. And instead of being told it's normal and it's okay and let's move on. Because like I said, everybody has these things. And you know what? I bet you know what? I'll be honest. I can't remember my moment. I've talked to some people. I've talked to some friends of different people that are close to me. And they're like, oh man, I remember this moment when I was like, a kid. And I was just like, why am I different? That's so weird. I can't remember the exact moment, but I know I had the thoughts. Like I said, we all have it. We all go through that. We all question it. It's normal and it's okay. But we stop telling kids it's normal. We stop telling young people it's normal. We stop telling adults it's normal. We stop telling them it's normal and it's okay. And we started telling them you should fix it because something's wrong with you. Not, I say we as the collective, we as in our society, because I'm not one of them. I don't agree with it and I don't support it, and I absolutely am not telling people to do it. But I know that as a society, our society is definitely putting it out there. Our society is definitely saying, you know what, it's okay. Our society is definitely saying you should fix it because you're not okay. It's okay to change, but you're not okay. You're definitely not okay. Something's wrong with you. So when they make that choice, hastily, more evidence to the fact that it's not a mental illness is the fact that they rationally, coherently regret what they've done. Now, not all of them. A lot of them are living happily, and they'll, some of them are firmly against groomers, and some of them are absolutely grooming others, and some of them, it's all over the place. The broad spectrum people are different, but there's a lot. You know what? Somebody quoted to me a statistic. They're like, if it's not a mental disorder, then how come 30 to 40% of them are suicidal? No, that only proves that it's not a disorder, because after they've taken these actions, they hate themselves. 30 to 40% of them do not like the choices they made. 30 to 40% of them regret what they've done. 30 to 40% of them wish they could undo what they've done. 30 to 40% of them hate themselves. Now you may say, well, hating themselves, isn't that a mental disorder? Well, it's a gray area of mental disorder. It's definitely a mental issue. It's definitely, a level of depression. It's self-loathing, but is it a disorder? Well, some people debate about that, but let me make it clear. That is evidence to the fact that the action prior wasn't a disorder, because schizophrenics do things. They don't regret it afterwards. They actually, most of the time, can deny they did it even though they did it. People with mental disabilities don't operate with the premise that I regret my previous actions. These people live in regret because they don't have a mental disorder. They acted hastily in a moment of weakness and vulnerability. Okay, now let's get into another. By classifying it as a mental disorder, you've absolved them of responsibility. This is no longer their fault. And I mentioned that before, but I mentioned that before as in we can't condemn them for their actions. We can't be mad at them. We can't be upset at them because it's not their fault. They're not doing this. They're not in the right mind. It's just they're acting, and it's not. No. But see, this is even on a different level. We'll run down a scenario. Say a male pedophile, right? Male pedophile claims that he's trapped in the body of a woman, that he identifies as a woman, because that's all you have to say at this point. You can go in a public restroom now, go into any restroom you want, and all you have to do is say, I identify. So this male pedophile identifies as a woman, right? Then he goes in to the women's restroom, molests a young child, rapes a woman, right? He hasn't actually transitioned or anything. He hasn't actually had any surgeries. He's literally a male who identifies as a woman. So he can freely go into the women's restroom. So he walks in the women's restroom and assaults a woman, or he's a male pedophile and he rapes a child. If, with this classification, his lawyer is able to throw him at the mercy of the court, claim mental disorder, and he serves no prison time. Now that may seem weird to you, right? He just raped somebody. It's not his fault. If you're mentally disabled, you're not held accountable. Now, you can send them to a hospital to be committed and to be, they could be there for months, years, life, lots of people. You can send them to the hospital to get treatment, but you can't send them to prison. All he had to do was say, I identify as a woman. That's it. Identify as a woman. I identify as a 5 little words, and it absolves him of his crime. All because of this classification. This classification is incredibly dangerous, incredibly flawed, and incredibly wrong. These people lots of these people make decisions hastily. Lots of people make decisions, all of us make decisions hastily. We're, like I said, vulnerability, weakness. This society has become a society that conditions this behavior and validates it. Cheer it on. And then afterwards, we're going to give them an easy out. Wasn't your fault. Even though we encouraged you to do it, even though we cheered you on, wasn't your fault. This classification needs to be overturned, and this situation needs to be rectified presently, because the reality is the longer that this takes for them to change it, the longer it'll be in there. Being overweight, which is actually incredibly common in America, it is. It's just common. Overweight's incredibly common in our society. Until about, I don't know, what was it, 10 years ago or something, when they updated the DSM-4 to the 5, that they finally removed overweight from diagnostics of mental disorders. Being overweight was a mental disability? Come on, man. And it's been in there for so long, it took a long time to get it removed. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not condemning Johns Hopkins. I'm not even condemning the psychiatrist. I haven't even mentioned his name because I'm not mad at him. I'm just saying he's wrong. Now, some people don't look at all the facts. Some people have gotten tired. Some people have gotten frustrated. Some people have gotten scarred by different things that have happened in the society, and their view is skewed. So I'm not sure why he chose to classify it this way, but he is wrong. He's wrong. And they need to correct this. I hope this is giving you some insight. I'm sure there's a lot more details we could have gone into, but I've been talking to y'all for over 20 minutes, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I don't want to get to the point where you're no longer really listening to me either. So I think I'm going to call it, I'm going to wrap it up right there. I wish you all the best. I do. I got nothing but love for all of y'all. If you know someone who's going through these things, they've been ridiculed or condemned for their choices in life, my heart goes out to you. My heart goes out to them. I'm not trying to condemn anyone. There are a lot of actions in our society that are wrong. They're put in front of our children. They're put in the face of the public that don't need to be. But my focus here was not to hate or throw shade or be ugly or be nasty to anyone. It was just to right a wrong, or better yet, because I'm not in the position to be able to right this wrong. I just wanted to put the information out there so more people could just take it in, really give it the adequate amount of thought, and not be so quick to, I dislike them, therefore they're mentally used, because I would never do that before. So if I would never do it, obviously it's an illness. It's not. It's a choice. It's a wrong choice. But it's a choice. All right, it's your boy, and I'm out.